Dark-type Pokémon, introduced in Generation 2, the Dark-type...
Rehasher.
What? What is it?
You're doing this again? Haven't you talked about this before? Twice? You've made a video about Dark-type Pokémon and Dark-type moves. What else could there be?
I mean, you're right, but none of those videos really went into what the Dark-type is.
It's the evil type and the power of darkness, or whatever.
But what does that even mean, though? Like, in a world of elemental superpowers and fairy magic, how does dark or evil fit in? Well, that's what we're going to look into in today's video. Let's start things off by looking into the etymology of the dark type. And since this is a Japanese game made by Japanese people, and the first ones were based in Japan, we'll look into the Japanese name for the type. In Japanese, the type is called Akuma Taipu, and when brought over to the West, it was initially translated as evil type. I mean, think about it. Akuma. Aku from Samurai Jack, the evil demon. Akuma, the clearly evil villain in Street Fighter. Akuma is also the name given to Satan in Japanese Christianity. Aku means evil, and Akuma can be translated as just demon, or devil even. Now, as we've gone over in my previous videos, while that evil label applies to certain Pokémon and moves, it doesn't actually apply to all dark types very well. So what gives? Well, I'll tell you. It's this. This word, Aku, is just one of a few ways to say this kanji character. For context, kanji is one of 3 scripts, or forms of writing that the Japanese use in their language, the others being hiragana, what I showed you earlier, and katakana. Kanji are Chinese characters first introduced to Japan in the 5th century and are ideograms, meaning they are characters that represent symbols or concepts. The Japanese took those Chinese characters as well as their original pronunciations and combined it with their own spoken language. This resulted in kanji having 2 different pronunciations, Onyomi, the original Chinese, and Kunyomi, the Japanese. Okay, so going back to this character, Aku, it's the Onyomi version. But what is the Kunyomi version? Well, there are quite a few, and each of them have their own meaning. Not only that, but the word also changes when you combine it with another kanji. To put it simply, language in general is complicated, and we all have jokes and memes about how complicated and contextual and dumb English is, but Japanese has its own set of that too, and I do not envy the headache it must have been to translate that. Reportedly, English is one of, if not the hardest common languages for native Japanese speakers to learn, and similarly for native English speakers, Japanese is up there. It's no French or Spanish, that's for sure, though it's not as high as Mandarin Chinese. But anyway, translate it, they did. And to do that, they tried matching the kanji's numerous potential definitions by using a word that could be used as a general term that would similarly encompass multiple meanings depending on the context. So let's look at the word dark. According to Merriam-Webster, dark also has multiple meanings. When referring to brightness, it can mean devoid or partially devoid of light. When referring to color, it can mean wholly or partially black. And then, of course, you have definitions like arising from or showing evil traits or desires, dismal, gloomy, and relating to grim or depressing circumstances. All of these definitions do seem to make dark a much more appropriate label for dark-type Pokémon than strictly evil would, since it can be applied much more broadly. And this is especially the case when you look at how Eastern ideals versus Western ideals play a role here as well. Culturally, evil can mean many different things. Most Western ideas of evil are sort of black and white. You're evil or you aren't. Most of this stems from Abrahamic religions. You're an evil sinner who's gonna burn, or you're a saved believer. You're evil or you aren't. Whereas most Eastern ideas of evil see the complexities of life. Yin-yang. No one is wholly devoid of the darkness, and similarly, no one is truly pure evil. And when you get into how spirits play a role, this becomes apparent too. Eastern spirits are very flip-floppy, like humans. Emotions are complex, and sometimes they do good, and sometimes bad. And context matters too. One kami can be seen as evil for bringing starvation to a village whose river is totally devoid of fish. Meanwhile, that very same kami is worshipped in a village further upstream for bringing them bountiful supplies of fish. Life is complicated. Meanwhile, in the West, if it's not an angel, it's a demon deserving of death. Sure, demons are just fallen angels, but once the evil sin is committed, eternal torture. Have fun. So clearly, this one word, evil, wouldn't be fitting of a Pokemon type, because it means totally different things depending on who you're talking to. So dark is a lot more fitting here in the West.
Hey, do you have body hair but don't want it? Then try out Manscaped's Performance Package, featuring products used for people with gratuitous amounts of hair. It features the new Lawnmower 4.0, made with real lawnmower and skin-safe technology specifically designed for your balls. That's right, balls. It's like full-powered lawnmower for your balls. It has wireless charging with lightning, real lightning. Sound the alarm, you're going to be extremely comfortable without your body hair. What's that? You have nose hair? What about nose hair? Whack those weeds with the Weed Whacker. An actual weed whacker for your ears and nose. Whack is the term the mob uses for killing. So kill that hair. These aren't your dad's shavers, these are turbo shavers. Man shavers. Think of all the savings and shavings. Use the coupon code Lockstin20 for 20% off of your entire purchase. Or use my link in the description. It's down there.
And now, with all that out of the way, we can turn our attention to type matchups. Why are dark types strong against some types and weak against others? What's the logic? And can that help us explain what the type is all about? Well, let's start with the fighting type. Why are dark types weak to fighting type attacks? Why do fighting types resist dark type attacks? Well, it all comes down to the idea of strong, disciplined, and honorable versus dishonorable combat and cheating. This is clearly seen in dark-type moves like Night Slash, Sucker Punch, False Surrender, and especially Beat Up, where you just send out all of your Pokemon to pummel on your opponent at once. Like, yeah, great. How is this okay? There's no honor in ganging up on someone or using trickery and deceit. While people do tend to get the upper hand by fighting dirty, honor and integrity usually come out on top. The hero always wins. And any well-trained fighter will know how to look out for said tactics and be aware of them. So Incineroar, who's a heel wrestler, the fake antagonist in fake sports entertainment wrestling, wouldn't really stand a chance against a real experienced combatant. Hence, the fighting and dark type interactions. Now, ghost types. Now, this is kind of interesting because you'd think that ghost types would be strong against dark types, right? I mean, there are a number of ghost type moves with the word shadow in their names, so they just have to be strong against dark types, right? Not necessarily. While ghost type Pokemon seem to have power over darkness, shadows specifically, it's very limited. Like, think about a single drop of rain falling into the ocean. The ghost type is the drop of rain, and the dark type is the ocean. Essentially what I'm saying is,
this is advanced darkness.
And then think about just how many villains, in Japanese media especially, are all about consuming souls to gain power. And most necromancers would also be dark and deceitful, yeah? Showing souls and spirits and ghosts who's boss. I mean, most concepts of devils have them trading things for souls, after all. Also, evil demons, which would absolutely be dark type, eat souls as if they were cake. And then you got villains like Nightmare with the Soul Edge Sword absorbing all kinds of souls and spirits. Dracula in Castlevania specifically wants to eat souls, and that's also what the vampires in Hellsing do. And heck, the entire concept of Dark Souls, right? Dark Souls. It's all dark and grim, and there's a load of creatures, including yourself, busy eating and controlling souls. And then various Kamen Rider monster races, such as the Wolfen, are also all about consuming souls. And by now, we all know just how much classic Japanese television affects Pokemon, right? And so that's why dark types are strong against ghost types. The only thing more evil and messed up from killing someone is then also consuming their soul. And then, oh butts! Here comes a cute thing! Dark is weak to fairy type. Why is that? Well, I went into detail about the fairy type over in this video, although that was a couple of years ago. So I guess a bit of a refresher summary is in order, but for more details, that video. As I mentioned in that video, fairy types are associated with nature and nature magic. However, that's not the only thing. The fairy type can also be seen as a sort of light magic type, much like how we've gone over that the dark in dark type isn't just the evil type. It can also encompass dark things, or even dark magic. This light magic idea with the fairy type is seen in fairy moves like Moonblast, Moonlight, and Dazzling Gleam. So basically, the relationship here is clearly a light versus dark kind of thing. The very presence of light is the absence of darkness by definition, so it works out. Conceptually, anyway. You could also see cute and innocent little pink things as something that a dark type would feel uneasy about. A weakness in its heart, like how many villains have a soft spot for innocent and uncorrupted children. They remind them of themselves before they became dark, so being attacked by them hurts that much more. Next is the bug type. Why are dark types weak to bugs? Like, what? Well, remember, Japanese game. Culturally speaking, the Japanese love bugs. Bug catching is a major part of growing up over there, and also one of the main inspirations to Pokémon in the first place. And there are numerous heroic Super Sentai whose helmets are inspired by bugs. The Hercules or Rhinoceros Beetle are hugely popular, and sure enough, when they added the dark type, they also added Heracross, a bug fighting type, a perfect dark type counterer. Then also consider that most bugs are nocturnal and rule the night, which is also when dark type malicious deeds are often committed. The bugs then are fully aware of the dark type's deeds and thus know how to avoid most of the damage. And plus, how is evil dominated typically, both politically and in media? With teamwork. Working together as a society or a group of kids to rid the world of past evils. Bugs also cooperate in large numbers to benefit the whole of their colonies. Then, finally, we have the psychic types. It seems to be commonly accepted in the Pokémon fandom that the reason why psychic types have their weaknesses is linked to common fears. Fear of bugs, fear of ghosts, and fear of the dark. Literal darkness in this case, though also possibly figuratively. I mean, surely we're mortified by the occasional evildoer in society, otherwise open carry wouldn't be as popular. When someone threatens to punch you, surely you flinch in fear, especially if we consider the classical bully beating up a nerd trope, the nerd being a smarty pants. And that would be fitting of a psychic type here. But these explanations work for why psychic is weak to dark type attacks. But does that logic explain why dark type Pokémon are completely immune to psychic attacks? Well, yes, but actually, no. Kind of. Think of it this way. The psychic Pokemon's mind gets clouded due to the fear, and thus it can't think straight. It can't concentrate, and fails to do any damage with its attacks because its mind is consumed by the encroaching darkness. Another way to look at it is that the dark type could also represent the void. Space, basically. Now, you may be saying, hold on there, Lockstin. Psychic-type Pokémon already cover themes of outer space, but that's not entirely accurate. The whole connection psychic types have with space has more to do with the concepts of astrology, which focuses on the psychic powers of celestial bodies, like stars and constellations. They also got plenty of, astral projecting kind of stuff, but they aren't so much the void. What I'm proposing here is that the dark type also covers space, but more specifically the empty blackness of it all. The metaphorical abyss. After all, what is left for you after you die and your soul is consumed? Total oblivion. The mind can't comprehend what lies beyond the void and becomes terrified, which circles back to what we were talking about earlier and connects to another common fear, the fear of the unknown. Or another thing is that psychic attacks that attack the mind don't really work on dark types because their own minds are so twisted and different from everyone else's. What with all the twisted and messed up thinking? But speaking of that means of thinking, how is that a type? So, we've gone over the dark type's relationship with other types, but what does that actually mean? What is this dark energy that these Pokemon utilize? Because, like, think about Arceus. It has a plate for each type. What does equipping the dark type plate do? Does it just change its personality? Then think Eevee. Its DNA is changed when close to certain stones radiating specific types of energy. And in the case of Espeon, it's absorbing lots of energy from the sun, and Umbreon lots of energy from the moon. But like, the moon's energy is just the sun's energy reflected off of a big rock. Now, we don't have anything in the game's lore detailing this besides talking about infinity energy, and that would certainly require its own dedicated video. However, there are a couple of things that could be the inspiration for this dark type energy. The first thing that dark energy could be based on is dark matter. To explain this as simply as I can, because we're dipping our toes into a complicated mess that is astrophysics, dark matter is a hypothetical form of matter that might make up 85% of the matter in the universe. And unlike regular matter, dark matter doesn't interact with the electromagnetic spectrum, meaning it doesn't absorb, reflect, or emit light. Game Freak was potentially taking this spacey connection into account when coming up with dark-type moves such as Darkrai's Dark Void, Hoopa Unbound's Hyperspace Fury, and the Dark-type Z-move. Remember, Z-moves being the ultimate pure form of the type. Dark-type's Z-move is Black Hole Eclipse. I mean, it's right there. It's in the name. The second thing that dark energy could be based on, though, is the spiritual concept of negative energy. Negative energy is the bad kind of juju karma energy brought about from doing things like committing bad or evil acts, experiencing traumatic events, or even just thinking about too many dark thoughts. Too much of this negative energy is thought to cause ill health effects to the person, both physically and mentally. And you might have noticed that this description matches up quite well with a few dark-type moves, like Dark Pulse and Nasty Plot. Nasty Plot, it's literally just thinking negatively about committing a bad act. It's dark type. But again, this is quite a lot of varying things, and certainly evil just doesn't cut it as a descriptor, whereas dark does encapsulate all that, making it the perfect word to use, even if it caused some confusion initially with people thinking it's literal darkness. But it certainly is a lot better than the confusion that calling it evil or demon type would have caused, especially because of all the claims of Satanism Pokemon was dealing with at the time already. So, there you have it, the dark type and its inspirations explained. What do you think of the dark type? Are there any other things that served as the inspiration for the dark type? Which dark type move do you think is the most dark? Let me know down in the black void that is the comment section below, preferably while setting your YouTube interface to dark mode, and never stop using your noggin.